for the access control, and we are going to discuss about the access matrix and as well what exactly the access control is. And before today's lecture, in the previous session also we have discussed about the different kind of aspect altogether, where we can say that how exactly the authentication is going to, what is the four times A. So one is the authentication, one is the authorization, one is the auditing, and one is the accountability. So when you take care about the auditing and account, so accountability basically going to give you the understanding about that it's non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means what? If you have done a particular thing, you cannot deny. You cannot deny. So repudiation means that you are denying the fact what you have done. But when you say the non-repudiation, so when you take care about the cameras, or you can say the CCTV camera, so those kind of things are an example of non-repudiation. So if you are doing something and someone is watching you, so you cannot deny that particular fact that you have done that thing. So, these are the things what you need to understand when you take care about the access control. So today we are going to, move ahead with the access control, and who can access what, and in which particular way we are going to discuss that. So let me open up my Word document before I can explain you. And there is a VASP document on the access control. Again, I'm going to share the link with you. So just hold on, let me share my screen. Yeah. So basically, when you take care about the access control, we have already discussed this particular thing about the discretionary as well as the mandatory access control. Discretionary access control, where the subject is going to modify the permissions onto the objects, like the users as well as the files. So whatever the read, write, execute permissions are, so users are named as the subjects, and the files or the directories are named as the objects, you can say. So every user is going to have some amount of permission onto the said object. Now, when you take care about the access control, so for example, in the mandatory access control also we have discussed that every service is going to be executed into its own confined domain, and the reason is because that service is going to have some specific permission to access that file, and it is governed by some set of policies. That's what I ask you actually, to go through the security enhanced Linux as well, to understand how exactly the mandatory access control is moving. Fine. So based on those two things, we can take care about the access control. It is nothing but you are putting the restrictions, you can say, or you are giving the permissions, you can say, but generally we say you are putting the restriction. Why? Because we always say default deny. So we can say you are putting the restrictions to a one particular directory or to a one particular file, which can be accessed by the user or by the process by means of discretionary, mandatorily, role-based or rule-based access control. So when you say the access control, there are two things. One is MAC, three things rather. MAC is mandatory access control. There is a DAC, which is nothing but the discretionary access control. There is a RBAC. RBAC is the role-based access control. Role-based means what? I'm working as a system administrator. So there are three different groups of system administrator based on the experience what they are going to have. So I'm going to create a role for them, that based on that role is going to grant them the access, that what they can access and what they cannot. So into that particular thing, we are going to move ahead with that. Just give me a second, just hold on. So this is the thing what you need to understand to take care about the role-based access control. Now, the next thing is also going to be a rule-based access control.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
Ma'am, the RBAC is rule-based access control, right?
RBAC is a role-based access control. It's a role.
Okay. Okay, okay, ma'am. Got it.
It's not a rule, it's a role. That means if I am working as a system administrator, so I'm going to have the specific role. I'm having the specific role to access it. Fine. So in that particular sense, you need to understand if I'm having the specific role, so only that particular specific role is going to have some set of permissions. By that, the object can be accessed. Fine. So some of the system administrator can access some set of files. The other user or the other developers, let's say, is going to not going to access those files because they are not the administrator. So the permissions are being granted according to the roles. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, so that kind of access is provided generally to DBAs, we can say, right? For example.
Not exactly the DBA. Some says, okay, you are having the HR role. Let's say I have created the HR role. So role is nothing but the set of permissions. Fine. So
Yeah.
the HR role
Yeah.
is able to access some specific files only. Fine.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Got it.
So basically, what are the objects you would like to access? If there are the group of users who do require the same set of permissions, so I'm going to create the role so that those permissions can be granted to the 3 to 4 users in a single pass.
Yeah.
Fine?
Got it, ma'am. Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
ma'am. Got it. Thank you.
Any other question? So RBAC is there in quite, it is quite old methodology or quite old access control, you can say. After the RBAC, as far if I'm not wrong, the DAC has come, but right now we have moved towards the federated identity management or the you can take care about the single sign-on. Fine, we will discuss that particular thing later on. But the next is the rule-based access control. Fine. So when you take care about rules, means what? For example, I'm not aware of whether you know the firewalls or not, but into the firewalls, there are some specific rules. Based on those rules, only the firewall can filter the traffic or firewall can accept the connection. So the rule based, okay, if the rule is there to access one particular object, then and then only the access is being granted. For example, if I am doing the SSH, or for example, if I am doing the FTP, so in the FTP also I need to specify the rules into the configuration files, and then only I can access that particular file over the FTP server, otherwise not. So this is the access control. So if someone asks you how to take care about the access control, generally the MAC is going to be there when the every service is going to be executed onto its confined domain. Always. The DAC is going to be there when the subject can actually take care about the giving the permissions to the objects in a read write execute manner. When you say the RBAC or the role based access control, that means the set of permissions are being created as a role, and those roles are going to be granted to each and every individual user or each and every individual some set of users, you can say. And after that, you are going to have the rule based access control. Rule based access control, it is really depending on if you are adding the rules, and based on those rules only you are able to access any specific location or the subject. Fine, dear students. We again, I am saying, again, I am repeating, we are discussing the access control. And with the access control, we are trying to see what are the various types of access control. So first thing what we have taken care about, the MAC, DAC, RBAC, as well as the rule-based access control. Any question? Yeah, and these are the basic things. So if the question is going to ask you that, okay, how does the access control is going to, going to limit the access to any specific uh, object or any specific data? So your answer is going to be the access control restrict the access. by putting any of the firewall rules, by putting any of the specific rules, by asking the process to execute into its own confined domain, or by controlling the permissions onto some specific objects to the subject.
Can you explain different types of firewall? Is that
Different types of.
firewall?
Okay,
Like
fine.
you just
We
said,
will discuss that. We will discuss that
Ma'am,
if the time remains.
ma'am,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but can you
Yeah.
just repeat that particular line, what you said, that controlling the access again?
Okay. If someone asks you, what do you mean by access control? Access control is nothing but basically you are restricting, as all your application is restricting for accessing some particular objects or some particular data in a specific way. The specific way could be either the process is going to run in the confined domain, which is nothing but the MAC. The specific way could be if the subjects are going to put the restriction for the accessibility of the objects. The specific way could be where the role is being created and those roles are being granted to the some specific users for the accessibility. And the other last is the rule base, where the sum of the firewall rules, or you can say IP table rules, are being created, and those rules are responsible to take care about blocking or allowing the traffic.
Yeah, ma'am, got it.
Fine. Okay. So Del, coming back to your question, if the time remains, for sure we are going to discuss. Fine, because it is not in the syllabus right now. So
okay. No,
yeah,
just to understand like what you were talking
yeah.
about.
Fine. Okay. So shall we proceed ahead, all the participants?
Yeah, ma'am.
Fine. Okay. Ahmad, Akash, are you doing good? Akshay, any question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. So now, so let's talk about, okay, so I have just discussed about the four different kinds of access control and how exactly those access controls are going to, create, you can say either going to allow you or going to deny your request. So when I will just open up the OWASP cheat sheet for the access control. But right now, the access control is can be moved ahead to take care about your authentication as well as the session authorization, not the authentication, authorization as well as the session management. Now, every authorization is, see here, so whenever you are going to put your credentials, those credentials are going to be encrypted and you are putting your credentials onto the application layer. The way it is going to be presented to the presentation layer, it is going to be totally into the encrypted form. Now, when it is going to be totally into the encrypted form, any of the algorithm is using for that particular encryption. So when the user is connected after, okay, identity management server is going to say, okay, this particular user is being authenticated now, and the session is created. As soon as the user is authenticated and the session is created, every session, a user can have multiple sessions. Please take a note. A user can have multiple sessions. Every session is going to have its own unique session ID. Every session is going to have its own unique session ID. That's how the session is being logged I'm talking about. The session is going to be monitored as well as it is going to be logged. Now, so let me open up my document again. So when you take care about the session, when you take care about the authentication and the respective token is being generated, so there is a one particular thing which is named as a broken authentication or the session management. Fine. So there is a term that you need to understand is a broken authentication. So as the name says, so basically your authentication is being broken. As simple as that. Why the authentication is being broken? Somewhere the credentials are getting mismatched. Somewhere the session ID is being stolen. Somewhere the access control, whatever the access control you have seen, those policies are not being set accordingly. And because of that, the authentication is being broken. Okay, so basically the broken authentication, or so this is a vulnerability that you need to understand, or session management. Broken authentication or the session management. So what it is going to take care about? Basically, it goes for the impersonation of user session. Fine. So when you say the impersonation of the user session, what do you mean by that? So attacker can actually, you can say, exploit, or you can say the weakness or the vulnerabilities of the your access control, and because of that particular thing, the session exploitation can be there. For example, I suppose you are signing onto one particular Facebook account or the Google account or any other account, let's say, suppose. Fine. Now, at every time, whenever you connect to to any of the web server or to any of the website, you put your user credentials. And as soon as those credentials are being computed and getting processed, a unique session ID is going to be generated. Fine. And what is that session ID is? Why the request comes to you only? There are many users, mail.google.com. Many users are working for some particular mail. But why your mails are visible to you only, not for anyone else? Why? Because for your thing, the actual session ID is getting generated. That's why that's how the request and response coordinate with each other. If there is no session ID at all, so response will not, the server will not be available, is not going to be aware of to whom I need to send this particular response. So I need to have the session ID. And that particular session ID is going to take care about what you can access while you are logged in. So every time, whenever the user requests any of the thing from the server, always by means of the session ID. Always. So you need to take care about, and it actually plays a very, very major role. The reason behind that is because this session ID, so even if the user forgot the password, but that session ID is still valid, and that session ID can actually take care about validating that user again. Please take a note onto this. So when I say the session ID plays a very important role. So anytime, whenever the user access or user wants any of the data from the server, so how the server identifies it? Only through the session ID. Server cannot check again and again the authentication. The authentication is done. That's how the session ID is being created. And this particular session ID is responsible to tell the server that, okay, I'm the legitimate user and I'm accessing the data for my own purpose. And just take care about. So if that session ID is written into the plain text format, and if it is not at all encrypted, anyone can hack that particular session ID to impersonate as a normal user. Take a note onto this. Are you getting me? And this is a vulnerability. So again, ultimately, you need to see when you are developing your web applications, you are able to do lots of things, but I do not know, in Java, there is a one particular, I believe the method is there or the class is there, which is correct me if I'm wrong, which is responsible to create the session. Are you aware of that? Hello, dear students. Hello, am I audible to you?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, you are audible.
So is there any method or the class in the Java or in the Python or any of the the way by which you are developing a web services? I believe there must be some particular method. Okay, let me just hold on for a second. Let me grab this thing for you. Okay, so it is quite nice thing. So let me share the screen. Since many of you are learning the Java as well, I do not
Ma'am,
know.
actually, at least what I learned is, ma'am, we were taught the basic services,
Are you able
like
to see?
what can be
Just
accessed.
look at. Tanmay, hold on. Are you able to see session in the Java web application?
Yeah, ma'am.
Are you able to see? This is where the coding, skills comes into the picture. I'm going to tell you the vulnerability. The vulnerability is like that because the session timeout or the session encryption did not happen. But how exactly the session is being created, it is really up to you. It is really up to you. So that's what I given you, because as far as I see, for last 18 years, I believe I'm out of the Java programming. But as per I can recall with my experience that there was a method, and that's what it is, a session management. Try to understand this particular thing. This is a very crucial aspect when you take care about the sessions. Because if it is not properly handled or if it is not properly encrypted, this is going to give you the whole lot of information to any of the non-legitimate user. And that's why the session timeout, it is really important. The session information encryption, it is really important. TLS is really important. SSL is being discouraged to be used, but yeah, TLS is still there, which you can do it. Fine. So anyone can ask you this particular question, that how exactly the broken authentication is going to work. So broken authentication means what exactly? Basically, your session is not working fine or your credentials are not working fine. And because of that only, the authentication is being broken. And when the authentication is being broken, any non-legitimate user can work with that. So let me open up my Word document again. So to share you with, yeah. So basically, broken authentication works with the session management, or you can say user credentials. Fine. Okay. Are you with me, all the dear students? Now, you need to understand, when you are developing your web applications. So web applications, that means it is going to generate a session. And sessions are nothing but the actual, the way the transactions are happening. Every session ID is going to have some sort of tokens, and that particular token is going to identify what you are authorized to access. Right? we haven't discussed yet about the token, so do not go ahead with what exactly the token is. For now, what I can tell you, upon authentication, every identity provider is responsible to generate the token, and that token is going to have the information about the session, information about the authorization, information about the validity. So this token hijacking is actually going to give you the complete understanding about the user credentials, as well, not exactly the user credentials, the session, as well as the authorization. Right? Now, for example, I do not know that how many of you have seen the URL. I'm not the best programmer for writing any of the web application. But yeah, I can easily see what is the problem into the specific URL. Okay. Every session, I do not know whether you have noticed this or not. Every session is going to have some URL associated with it. And this particular URL is responsible to understand the session ID. Rather, if you are working with the teams as well, you are logging using your teams. And if you see the team's URL, whatever the URL is there, the session ID is not at all mentioned. You can see the team's URL. Why? Because why the session ID is there? Because you logged in and the session is created for your own user account. So how the session ID is, you need to have the encryption with the session ID. And if you do not do that, so in that case, you may actually, the session can be hijacked easily. Are you getting my point? So go to the Teams account. You must be able to see the way the URL is being generated for your own account usage. Just look at where never, the session ID is going to be mentioned into the plain text format. Rather, if you log in into your mail account as well, you will not be able to see any session ID into the plain text format. That is there. This is the encryption what you need to actually take care about. Next thing, so how you need to maintain. So try to see the methods into the Java while programming when you are taking care about the session management. After this particular thing, you are going to have the password. So there is 100 of different kind of databases which are going to take care about the password as well. And there are the specific website through the OWASP as well. Just hold on, let me show you the things. Just hold on. Yeah, just hold on. No, I'm not, but I have gone through one particular article which has actually displayed the different kind of passwords, but I do not exactly remember where exactly that particular article is, but it was there. I've gone through that. Yeah, but I would like to show you two things right now. Let me share the screen. Yeah, we are discussing about this is a OWASP, about the broken authentication. See here. Attackers have access to the hundreds or millions of valid username and the password. Session management attacks are well understood and relation to the unexpired tokens. Have you had a kind of what you can say? Okay, can you tell me that onto the same system if you are working, how long your mail account is going to be active onto that? Can you tell me that? Hello? Can you tell me that if you are working onto a one particular system, how long the mail account is going to be there?
Ma'am, it depends. If it is for our college mail ID, then it goes away in 15 minutes. Suppose.
Okay. Now say you open it and you did not log off and you close down your system. You power on again and you're trying to access the mail, then
Ma'am, it will ask for the authentication again. Verify it's you. That's what it asks.
okay. Okay. And if it is not our college or it is a same simple Hotmail or Google or Yahoo, whatever the things are, then
Ma'am, ma'am, if you don't use that particular feature of saving your password, then it won't ask. Then it will again ask you. And if you have obviously saved your password, then it will just fill it and will give you the access to your mail.
okay. Anyone else? Fine. Okay. So let me tell you that if I go for 5 years before, or let's say 7 to 8 years before, it was my experience. Maybe you are going to have the different kind of experience altogether, or let's say 10 years before. So initially, I used to see always that until unless I specifically log off from the session, my session is still enabled. I do not know whether you have experienced the same thing or not. A session was still getting enabled. Second time, whenever I open up my system, I am going to put the different kind of password altogether. It won't ask me until unless I specifically log off. When I specifically log off, that time it is going to ask me to put the password again. The reason behind that is your validity of the session IDs. How long your session ID is going to be there even after you logged off. Are you getting all the students? Even after you logged off, how long the session ID is going to be there? So you could be having this particular question that as soon as the user gets logged off, the session should be immediately end up, isn't it? Hello? Don't you think so? As soon as the user logged off immediately, the session should be disconnected. Don't you think so?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. But session is what? It's a background process. And that particular process takes some time. It takes some time to deallocate the resources and to connect it again. Isn't it? It is as simple as that. So it takes some time to take care about. Are you with me, dear students?
Yeah, ma'am.
What I am saying? So when it takes some time, so you need to understand what is that time when the system is going to be available for the users or for the non-legitimate user. That you need to understand. Are you getting me? So that's why we always say that as soon as the user logs off from the session, please make sure about that the disconnection happens immediately. Fine, dear students?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, if I suppose just open on Google that Instagram.com and I
Uh-huh.
log into my account,
Uh-huh.
after that I don't log off from my account. I don't log out, and
Uh-huh.
I just close that particular tab and switch off my machine. So
Uh-huh.
after 2 days, I again log into my account. But ma'am, without just logging in, I am getting the access to my account without entering my username password. So in that case, what happens? Does the session does
Exactly,
not
that's what
terminate?
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, isn't it? That's what I'm saying that just just hold on for a second. Just hold on. Yeah. So in this particular sense, you need to understand that whenever the session is being created, the timeout period of the session really matters. So even if you logged out your power on your system, but the session is being created at their end, you did not disconnect it, or neither you have initiated the process for the disconnection. Are you getting Tanmay?
Yeah, ma'am.
The session is being created at their end, not at your end. If the session is created at your end, so even if you power off the system and restart the system again, you need to go for the new password and the whatever the you need to re-enter the password again. But
Yeah.
right now, whatever you are saying, the session is being created at their end. You did not specifically log off the session. Are you getting me? So the
Yes.
process for your user credentials are already running to their end. Are you getting me, Tanmay?
Ma'am, but in that case, then that particular session can be used by me for maybe a year because I am not terminating it or
You are
destroying
not.
it.
So that's why the automatically session. So if the session is going to be inactive for for a particular period of time, you are supposed to disconnect that session. That is the major thing in the session management that you need to realize.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so this
Yeah,
is
ma'am.
quite
Got it.
important. So whenever that's what I ask you this particular question, that how exactly the things are happening when you are logging into any of the mail account or any of the Facebook account or the Instagram or whatever the things are. Why? Because even if you log off from your end, it is really not getting done at cancelled from your end. Why? Because the session is being created to that server side.
Oh, ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
another question can I ask? I
Please
don't
go
know.
ahead.
Ma'am, this happens with web, and what if it is in the scenario of a application, mobile application?
See, try to understand this particular thing, Tanmay. It is never going to be, even if you disconnect, even if you close that tab, or even if you close the mobile, shut down the mobile, but you are working as a customer, fine,
Yeah.
and you are not specifically logged off from the session. You did not disconnect it. So until
Yeah.
unless you disconnect it, the session is going to be there. Or if the session is inactive for a longer period of time, it is automatically going to be logged off. Whichever comes first.
Okay, got it.
Whichever comes first. So that you need to understand. So that is a major reason why we always say please specifically log off. Because log off means what? You initiate the process of killing the session. Are you getting my point, Tanmay?
Yes, ma'am, got it.
All the participants.
Understood.
Yeah, so just take care about what we are discussing. We are taking care about the session management, and in the session management, we are trying to say how exactly the session is going to create a problem. So, whenever you are using any of the Python or Java for any of the web application, you need to take care about how long that session is going to be there, even if the user do not disconnect. Fine.
Yeah,
So
ma'am. Understood.
as
Thank
soon
you.
as the session is going to be killed up automatically by your end, so which will force the user to log in again. Akash, Abhi, are you with me? What we are discussing? Hello, Abhi, am I audible to you? Pranay, Rohit, Satvik, are you with me? We are discussing the
Ma'am,
session management. Yes, Abhi, tell me.
ma'am, we can use Instagram on our mobile phones as well as on the desktop.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we have to log in the desktop
Mm-hmm.
application, but we are logged in the mobile application. Then how the sessions are managed there?
See, for whenever two sessions are going to be there, so when you say Palagjit, you are logging in from the your laptop or as well as the mobile phone. So two different sessions are running Palagjit. Okay.
And ma'am, when we terminate one of the session, like if I logged off from my laptop,
So
but
both the sessions
still
are
the
going to be
session.
terminated. Both the sessions are going to be terminated automatically.
No, ma'am, but I'm still logged in my mobile application.
Yeah, so it is again depending on that what you see here. Try to understand this thing. Even if I log off from my mail account or your mail account, you are going to log off from your laptop. Still on the mobile, you are able to see, isn't it, Palagjit? So these are the two
Yes.
different sessions altogether. That's what I'm asking. But try to understand this thing, particularly what I'm saying, that you try to log out, you try to open up the two different sessions from two different laptops. Fine. From two different laptops, you open up two different sessions and you are trying to log off from one session and the second laptop you can see. Try to see the behavior of the that particular account from the second laptop. It is again the way the mobile application is being developed. So that's why we always say the mobile applications are more vulnerable as compared to the laptop applications,
Okay, ma'am.
isn't it?
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
ma'am, for the different kind of session, so if there are actually specified, ma'am, but every session will have a specific ID, right, which is unique.
Yes.
So that cannot be same.
That cannot be
So
changed.
in that way, so ma'am, that in that way we can manage the vulnerability, right, for different
Yeah,
ways.
so that session ID, that's what the vulnerability is. If that session ID is written into the plain text format,
Yeah.
so there where the vulnerability is, you are introducing the, so that's why every responsibility is of the developer.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Each and the way you code, the way you manage the session, the way you encrypt it, fine. So if
Yeah,
it
ma'am.
is into the plain text format, if you are, please take a note onto this. If anyone asks you that, okay, you have gone through these many of subjects for your higher education or onto the job, okay, how exactly the project you have developed, the dissertation project, that from one system you are going to go to the other system, how the transactions happens. So you need to understand the transaction happens. Fine, but the information is never going to be transmitted in the plain text format. And if it is getting transmitted into the plain text format, that means you are introducing the vulnerability programmatically into your system by which any of the bad user can get the information. Fine, dear students?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, this happens in the case of WhatsApp because when we connect WhatsApp, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the WhatsApp web through our mobile application. If our mobile application is not working, then that web also don't work. So this is in the case of web WhatsApp.
This is a case of what you said?
WhatsApp web, ma'am.
Abhi, I do not think so. You are completely audible to me.
Hello, ma'am. Am I not
Yeah, can
audible?
you be little louder, Abhi?
Hello.
Yeah, Abhi, tell me.
Ma'am, the thing you said right now, the session time, when the application is running on two platforms, like on the mobile and on the web, so this can be done when we are using WhatsApp web, because if while using WhatsApp web the application on mobile is not connected, then the web also doesn't work.
Okay, fine. Fine. But again, Abhi, let me tell you, it's again the application specific, but again, it is going to create the two different sessions altogether. Fine, it is not a single session. It is never
Okay.
going to be a single session, because whatever you are going to scan to take care about the WhatsApp web, it is responsible to authenticate and create a new session for you.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. So that particular whatever the thing what you are going to scan, that particular information is really required for the authentication.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, is as though the unique ID, I mean the session IDs are unique, but if the same application or the same thing like the Instagram or WhatsApp, whatever, is used on both the mobile as well as the web, ma'am, can they be related to each other? The like the two sessions.
They are related to a single user, but session IDs are always different.
Okay.
They are related to a single user. That is the major reason why there is always a limit to create a session, because every session is going to consume some amount of main memory, because a process is being created.
Yeah. Got it.
Fine? Yeah? Anything else? Swarangi, Tanay, Varun, are you with me? So let me share these links with you if you get the time. So just go through these links. And please take a note, we are discussing quite new concept. So it's not exactly the quite new, but you can say a different view of your programming. So please take a note, just ask me the question if you do have. So Abhi, I have shared all the things, all the documents, please go through. Fine. So let me have the attendance right now. Yes, attendance please. PRN 8, Akash.
Present, ma'am.
9,
Present, ma'am.
15.
Present, ma'am.
Anubhav, you are quite irregular. Are you able to catch up?
Ma'am, I will watch the previous videos like
Yeah,
this.
because this is quite new subject, and if you are going to be irregular, the perception what I want to develop, I may not be able to. Please take a note onto that. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. 18, 19,
Yes, ma'am, present.
20,
Present, ma'am.
24.
Present, ma'am.
Darren, are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
29, 36,
Present, ma'am.
37, 37,
Present, ma'am.
Ma'am,
38,
38 present, ma'am.
39,
Present, ma'am.
40.
Oh, ma'am, did you mark 29?
Yeah, 40, 44, 47, 51,
Present, ma'am.
53,
53 present, ma'am.
57, 61,
Present, ma'am. 57.
61. Pavit,
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
64, 72,
Super present.
Yes, ma'am.
73,
Yes, ma'am.
72.
74,
Present, ma'am.
80, 84, 86, Sutirtha,
86 present, ma'am.
87, Tanay, 89,
89 present, ma'am.
93,
Present, ma'am.
96, 103, Krishnan,
Present, ma'am.
104,
Yes, ma'am.
105, 107, 109. Dale is present.
107 is
Yeah,
present, yeah.
Super
okay.
present.
So all the best, dear students. Stay healthy and stay safe. Fine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, all the best. Let me stop the recording now. So again, I am repeating, please ask me the question as much as you can. So this is a new